Hello everybody, my name is Robert Rico. I'm the U.S. Realty Training head instructor, and I'm here to guide you to get you to that real estate exam for the state of California. Again, most of you probably already know this, and if you don't, that's fine. You have to pass 3 courses. You got to pass 3 courses to get to that state exam, and the 3 courses are: practice is mandatory, principles is mandatory per the DRE, the Department of Real Estate, and the third is an elective. And the elective we chose here at U.S. Realty Training is finance, and I'll explain to you later as to why finance is the one I chose for you. Listen, I've been in business and real estate business for, almost 30 years, a long time. All right, some of you already know this, and real estate has been fantastic for my wife and I. It's just completely changed our world. So I want those of you who are taking our courses, the practice, principles, and finance, to enjoy it, to get involved in it, in your studies. Take it serious, be professional, get it done. I guarantee it, it's not as hard as you think it is. After this course with me, you're gonna say, man, I'm a pro at this, because I'm a pro at teaching, right? I'm a pro at teaching. I'm gonna get you to understand this stuff. I have the patience, and I want you to have the patience for yourself also, all right? I want you to lighten up, relax, take a deep breath, right? And we'll do this together. Right? Just follow my lead and we're going to do great. You got it? So, with that being said, your very first chapter in the real estate principles course is going to be California real estate and property law. Now listen, it sounds like, oh my gosh, sounds so boring. And some of it is, some of it's not. I'm going to make it, if I can, I'm going to make it light up on the screen, right? A lot of this stuff is very interesting, by the way. It really is. I personally got addicted to it, because there's so much stuff going on. It's like, wow, that's pretty interesting. All right? So hang in there. Don't let it bore you. Don't let it like, oh God, what did I get myself into? Allow me to make it as entertaining and as educational as possible. All right? So here we go. Let's start off nice and slow. What you have to do when it comes to your course. Number 1, you got to take the online quizzes. After every chapter, on your online portal, on your student portal, you have to take a quiz after every chapter, all right? In order for you to go to chapter 2, you got to pass the quiz for chapter 1. In order for you to go to quiz number 3 in chapter 3, you got to pass the quiz for number 2. So it's not a big deal. The quizzes are only, I believe, 10 questions. And of those 10 questions, you only have to answer 6 correctly. That means 60%, and you pass the quiz to move on to the next one, all right? Leverage your textbook. Utilize your textbook. My recommendation, it always has been, is start off with the chapter summary at the end of the chapter. It gives you the highlights of what's going on in that chapter, right? And then you can dive into the chapter if you want and, get some more clarification if needed. Study your materials, presentation slides, the slides that I'll be utilizing. You'll have those on your portal also. You can go back and review the slides. Right? If you're watching this video, you have access to these videos. If you have to, rewatch the videos. You'll eventually get sick and tired of my face, so be it, but you'll have more knowledge regarding real estate, all right? So utilize these slides. Our PowerPoints are beautifully done, as best as we can, to make them clear and concise. Essential concepts, this is the deal. Like I mentioned before, we're going to do practice principles in finance, right? We've pulled out essential concepts from your textbooks. It's taken us a while to do it. I went in there and took out the meat and potatoes that I really want you to know, not solely for your exam, but for your real estate career, because I know you're going to get that license. Right? It's not about you getting the license, it's about what are you going to do with that license. And I'd hate for you to work your tail off getting this license and then letting that license kind of dissolve, right? I want you to utilize it when you get it and make some money. Have a nice flourishing real estate career, all right? So in this course, we're going to talk about essential concepts. I'm going to give you some practical advice. Again, my wife and I have done, at least 400 deals in our transactions in our career in about a 12-year span between 2000 and 2012-ish, right in there. We've seen it all, man. We've worked with buyers, we've worked with sellers, we've worked with tenants, we've worked with business owners. We've seen a lot happen. We've seen the market go super high and we've seen the market crash. We've seen a lot of stuff in the finance field, in the lending field, in the lending world. So I'm going to give you some practical advice. What's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me. Got it? Good. Agent activities, what we do on a daily basis. We'll talk about that throughout this course. What does a real estate agent actually do? What's important? What's not important? Listen, I'm pretty candid about this. I'm gonna just go for it. I'm gonna give you tell it like it is, and tell you, hey, don't worry about this. You might want to consider focusing on this. You're gonna get all my advice and all my points of view when necessary. Forms and disclosures. We'll be talking about forms and disclosures. A lot of you are intimidated by contracts. I've asked all of my students in the past, and it's thousands. I've asked them, what are you most afraid of with your new real estate career? What are you not looking forward to, right? And the number one answer I get is contracts. I'm afraid of the contracts. I'm afraid of the contracts. Well, I'm here to tell you that should be the least of your worries. That should be the least of your worries. And I'll tell you why, because contracts, forms, and disclosures in real estate here in the state of California are self-explanatory. They're very simple to understand. It'll say there, who is buying this house? Who is making this offer? Buyer's name. What do you think we should fill in the blank? The buyer's name. What's the address? Address. Everything is self-explanatory. There's nothing really to think about. The only thing to think about is, what should you put on the contract with your client? What should we offer? The negotiation process, to be practical, to be reasonable, to be analytical. You with me? To be creative. That's where you come in and you put that on the contract. The contract is easy to use. It's what you put on the contract that makes it powerful or weak. Please understand that. So that we're going to be going over is the contract. Don't worry about the contract. Don't worry about the contract. The contract is just a guide as to what your buyer or seller wants to do. All right, keep moving on here. Now, the main cast of professionals in real estate. All right, here we go. I love this slide here because it allows us to slowly understand what's going on in the world of real estate, who's involved. Now, imagine real estate if it was a movie, right? It had a cast of characters. It had its main characters and it had its supporting cast. This is the slide that would tell us everything there is to know about the most important cast of characters in the movie real estate, right? Look at the top there, buyers. Buyers is a cast member, and they're an important cast member. Buyers want to buy property, whether it be a business, whether it be a home, whether it be a commercial building. Buyers want to buy. Sellers want to sell. They want to sell businesses. They want to sell houses. They want to sell commercial property. Sellers want to sell. They're willing to give away their deed for money, right? Hey, buyer, you give me money, I'll give you the deed to my property. Some sellers want to sell their piece of land, raw land. I call it dirt, right? They want to sell their dirt. And he wants to buy my 1 acre of agricultural land over here for $25,000 an acre, right? You know. So sellers want to get rid of stuff, property, and buyers are willing to purchase property. Real estate agents, that's where you come in. Your job here is to put these two together. You got a buyer, you got a seller. Your job is to get them to fall in love contractually, man. It's to find a buyer and a seller that match. That's what you have to do. That's your job. If you have a buyer, your job is to go find the other piece. If you're a seller's agent, your job is to go out and find the other piece. And the minute you put them both together in the contract then becomes legal and binding. You got me there, right? You understand that. You got a buyer, you got a seller, agents put them together. They sign the contract agreeing to certain terms. Now you have a legal and binding contract. And what do we do with that legal and binding contract? Assume it's a baby, right? It becomes like a baby. It's got its own DNA, right? Its own address, its own APN number. It's got its own buyer. It's got its own particular seller with a certain name. It's got its own dynamic, right? And you created this. So who do we give it to babysit this thing? We want to give it to escrow. That's another important factor in the movie real estate. The escrow company. Escrow company's job is to babysit this thing, to feed it. Again, let's pretend it's a baby, to feed it, to make sure every single stipulation has been met that we had agreed to in the contract. Make sure it gets all its vitamins. Make sure everything we agree to, the inspections, make sure everything we agree to, the deposit is in. Make sure everything we agree to on this contract is part of here. And if something is missing, and it's not healthy to be missing stuff, escrow's job is to inform the parties. Hey guys, we can't close this deal. We can't let this thing grow up because something's missing. Something's missing. We're missing a certain inspection, or we're missing a certain amount of money. We're missing something. So escrow's job is to make sure this thing is growing, growing, and growing. And that involves, of course, all the other parties, the buyers, the sellers, the real estate agents. How about the lender? Who? Look on your screen. The lender is important, sure. The lender's job in this case would be to help who? Yeah, the buyer. Most buyers don't have cash underneath their mattress or in the closet or in the bank a large sum of money to buy a house cash. So they need the financial assistance of a lender to give them a loan. So lenders are involved here. Then we got this prospecting agent. I want you to know the word prospecting. Prospecting is the name of the game. Prospecting is talking to people. Please understand that in real estate, it's a beautiful career. In real estate, it's a people business. It's a people business, and that's what prospecting is. It's going out and talking to people. Prospecting. Finding someone who wants to buy, sell, or lease property. That's what prospecting is, and that's the name of the game. Listen, you got to like people to be in this field, but more importantly, people got to like you. Are you likable? I like to give the example of if you were able to clone yourself, right, and take yourself out for a cup of coffee, would you enjoy the conversation with yourself, right? Think about it, would you? If you think, oh man, yeah, it'll be a pretty good conversation, that's great. If you think, well, we wouldn't really talk much, I'm not much of a talker, then I want you to polish those social skills a little bit, right? Don't be afraid to talk and ask questions. Always ask questions. Did you see that movie last week? That's a great opening question. Hey, what do you think about the certain Lakers? What do you think about certain, a football team, right? Don't talk politics though. Don't talk politics. Politics is not good. So try to have a good conversation with your prospects when you're prospecting. It gets people to trust you. And when people trust you, they're willing to give you a shot. All right, let's keep on moving here. Now we're getting to the nitty-gritty. Let's get started here with real estate versus personal property. This is nice and simple. Now we're getting into the groove of the real estate field. So what is real estate, real property versus personal property? Well, a couple of things I want you to know to understand the difference. Real property is immovable, meaning you can't move it. Personal property, you can move it. You got it? That's the biggest difference. Real property, you cannot move it, and we call that immovable. Personal property, you can move it. Example, real property, a house. If a house is on permanent foundation, it ain't going anywhere. Real property. A tree planted in the ground, it's not going anywhere. Real property. Something that's movable, and you can, say, carry it out. How about a desk, a television, a plant in a pot, an apple, a computer? All these things you can move. Not attached to anything. In fact, speaking of attached, that's another one I want you to know. If something is attached to the property, it's real property. The stronger it's attached, the more likely it is real property and must remain with the property. If something is not attached to the house, it's just kind of sitting there like a sofa, it's personal property. So keyword here is attached. If something is attached, it stays. If it's not attached, it goes. Hope that makes sense. Got it? It should. Real property, immovable, attached. Personal property, movable, not attached. All right, good. That's fantastic. I want you to know also that personal property is called chattel. Please remember chattel. Chattel like in cattle, right? Like a herd of cattle. Back in the day, they were personal property, right? They moved around, they roamed around, cattle. So remember that with chattel. Chattel is personal property. Movable property not permanently attached to real estate. Examples include furniture, vehicles, and portable equipment. Again, permanently attached items, real property, they're not going anywhere. An example again would be fixtures. Fixtures like a ceiling fan. It's attached, real property. A dining room chandelier, ooh, nice. Attached to the ceiling, not going anywhere, real property. The minute we detach it and put it on the table, and this beautiful chandelier is now sitting on the table, it just became personal property. But while it's attached, real property. Good stuff. Elements of real property: land, soil, earth, and all substances on and below the surface land is real property. Airspace, area above the earth's surface limited by government controls, real property. So if I have my house, above my house, airspace, it's mine. Improvements on a piece of land. Typically, the biggest improvement, of course, is the house. We just improved this piece of land by placing a house on it. That's the biggest improvement. Permanently attached. Buildings, fences, and planted trees, real property. Key words here, permanently attached. Appurtenances, whoa, what does that mean? Items with specific use for that property. An example would be an easement. An easement. I own this house here, right? And there's another property owner that lives behind me in his own piece of land. But the only way he can get to his own piece of land is to drive through my property, through my land. That easement that he gets to utilize, the guy in the back, is appurtenant to the land, appurtenant to my land. It's appurtenant to my land. Got it? All right, fantastic. Let's keep on moving. We're doing great. This is just a nice introduction of the basics in the course of principles, and you're going to do fine. Now, we got the difference between real property and personal property. Key is one you cannot move, one you can move. One is permanently attached, the other one is not attached. All right, good. Let's keep on moving. When you own property, there's typically a couple of reasons why people want to buy property. Let's, for the sake of argument, say it's a house. Why does somebody want to buy a house? Well, typically there's two reasons. One, they're hoping the financial gains on it, right? They're hoping that the equity of the house increases like crazy, so it makes me money, right? So it's for a financial gain. And some people like to buy a house because they don't want anybody to restrict them to do what they want to do with their house. You know, when I was living in an apartment, I had to be quiet after 10, right? When I was living in an apartment, I couldn't modify the walls, right? I couldn't take down any walls. When I was living in an apartment, I couldn't upgrade the dishwasher. When I was living in an apartment, I had to keep the house colors in the neutral colors, right? I had to get the landlord or owner's permission to do anything with the front yard. Let's assume it was their house I was renting, right? When you buy a property, aside from the financial gains, you also want what we call the bundle of rights. When I buy this house, it's because I also want the bundle of rights. I'm the master of this domain. This is my palace. My wife and I bought this house because we want to make the rules for our house. We want to have the liberty to paint the walls any color we'd like. We want to have the liberty to do what we want with this house, long as it's legal. Bundle of rights. The bundle of rights is what we call, I'm going to give you the acronym UPT. U-P as in Peter, T-E-E, UPT. When you have the bundle of rights, you have the rights to UPT. You have the right to use it. You have the right to use it as long as you're not breaking any laws and you're not doing anything illegal. P is the right to possess it, meaning you have the right to live in it because you're on title. You have the right to possession, and anybody who's not on title, you have the right to escort them out and tell them, would you please leave the premises? So you have the right to possess it. The owner has the right to possess it. And those who do not possess it and aren't legally on title, you have the right to remove them. T, you have the right to transfer it. This is my domain. I have the right to give it away, sell it, will it, whatever the heck I want, it's mine. I have the ultimate ownership on this thing. It's called a fee simple estate. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just introducing you to a new term. Fee simple estate is the maximum ownership for a property, right? I can do what I want with it, as long as I'm not breaking the law. Then you have the E, the first E, which is encumber. I have the right to get loans on this property, right? If I have equity, I have the right to get loans on this property. I have the right to get a loan on this property to put a pool in the backyard, utilizing this property's equity. I have the right to utilize this property's equity, get a second loan on this property, which is encumber it, create a baggage, and I got to carry this baggage, but I have the right to do so because I have equity to send Johnny to college. And the second E is enjoy. I have the right to enjoy my own home, peace and quiet. So let's go through that again. With the bundle of rights, I have the right to upkeep. I have the right to use it as long as I'm not breaking the law. I have the right to possess it, and only I and whoever's on title has the right to possess it. I have the right to transfer it, which is I can will it, sell it, give it away. I have the right to encumber it. I have the right to utilize the equity on this and get some second loans on it to utilize that money and either buy other properties or put a pool in the backyard or whatever, to pay medical bills, whatever I want. But I have the right to encumber it. And then I have the right to enjoy it. Peace and quiet if I want. Makes sense. And this is why we do what we do when it comes to buying properties. Not just for the financial gain, but because we want the liberty to do things our way. Take a look at your screen there. We have the right to use, which is control it. The right to determine the property use. We have the right to possession. The right to use the property at will, the right to exclude, prohibit access to others. We have the right to transfer or dispose of it, which is right to sell, lease, or donate it. We have the right to encumber it. Ability to place a legal financial claim or burden on the property. We call that a junior lien. Or we have the right to enjoyment. The right to live without disturbance. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We have what we call the bundle of rights. Nice. And you don't get this if you're leasing a property. You might get some of these, but you don't get the whole bundle of rights. This is a beautiful benefit for home ownership. All right, so let's go into the real property of real estate. Defining real property. We already discussed it. It's immovable. There you have it. Land, trees, buildings, fences, and other things that are permanently attached on the land. Now, how is property transferred? When I sell my house, it's transferred by deed. The seller will sign what's called a grant deed. Think about that, grant deed. What does that mean, a grant deed? It's a deed in where the seller is granting. Granting meaning giving the deed for a price, right? Seller signs the grant deed because he's going to give that deed over to the buyer. And the buyer says, hey, I'm willing to give you consideration for your property for that deed. Consideration, ooh, that's a new word. Consideration means something in exchange for it. And typically in real estate, the something for exchange of your deed is money, right? Doesn't have to be technically, it could be another house. Hey, I'll give you your house. I'll give you my house for your house. Happens once in a blue moon. But most of the time in your career, you're going to see money. I'll give you consideration. In this case, it's going to be money for your deed, for your house. Beautiful. All right. Take a look there at your screen, man. There's a couple of examples. Trees in the ground are real property. The land, of course, is real property. You can't move that land. Fences, if they're in ground, is real property. The building is real property. That front door is real property. Why? Because it's attached. Those windows are attached, real property. Making sense now, isn't it? Yeah, anything attached, real property. It's immovable. Types of real property, you got the land, you got the airspace that we discussed already at a reasonable height. You got minerals that are in the ground. All right, that's real property, sure. Now, once you dig up the minerals and you're holding them in your hand, it just became personal property. You got water rights, that's real property. It is part of the land and it is considered real property, sure. An owner is allowed to take a fair share of underground water. There's some houses in certain areas of California that depend on a well. And that well is shared with others in that community. But homeowners have rights to that, to that water rights. Sure. Mineral rights. Rights to substances beneath the earth's surface with a fugitive or fluid nature. Common substances like oil, gas, gold, oh, that would be nice, coal, iron, gemstones, and underground water can be transferred separately from land ownership. Interesting. Yeah, you got mineral rights. You got mineral rights. Here we go. Mind you, one of those minerals that are down in the ground still, real property. Same thing with, say, example, flowers, trees, shrubs, anything in the ground attached, real property. The minute you yank them and put them in a pot or in a vase, they just became personal property. Let's not overthink this. Don't forget, a $5 bill is a $5 bill. A $5 bill is a $5 bill. That means it is what it is, face value. Do not overthink it. Study long, study wrong. No sense in overthinking something. You're gonna think yourself out of the right answer. Never overthink anything. Take it for face value. It is what it is. This is why real estate is so beautiful, because there's no misunderstandings, because everything is in the contract. What the contract says, that's what goes. You got it? Both sides sign to an agreement, and that's what goes. So, lesson here, stick to the contract. If you want something, put it in the contract. Got it? Let's reinforce that a $5 bill is a $5 bill. It is what it is. But I thought you meant this on the contract. No. I meant whatever is right there in the contract. I said I want $1 million. I said in that contract that the chandelier in the dining room does not stay. And you signed and agreed to it, buyer. When in doubt, shout it out. Where? In the contract. All right, here we go. Water rights, riparian rights, littoral rights, and underground water rights. Riparian rights is having rights if you live near a river, near a flowing water. Riparian, R-I want you to think of river. Riparian, I want you to think of river, R-I-R-I, for property bordering flowing water like a river or a stream. Littoral rights, I want you to think of L for lake, for property bordering standing water like a lake. Owners have reasonable usage rights of that lake, littoral rights. Riparian, what is riparian? We just discussed it. Yeah, river, flowing water, you got it. Underground water rights, owners can use water beneath their land for their own property. Some people have to use a well. And they pump the well, and that's how they get water to their property. They have a well with a pump on it, and they utilize that water underground. Beautiful. So these are water rights you'll have. Fixtures as real property. Again, fixtures. What is a fixture? Remember, anything attached. The chandelier, a ceiling fan. What other type of fixtures are there? An attached fixture is real property that used to be personal property. When an item gets permanently attached to the real property, it becomes a fixture. So if I have something sitting here on the table, the ceiling fan, I just bought it from a particular department store, and I bring it home and it's still boxed. It's personal property. I can still move it. But the minute I put it up on the ceiling and attach it with screws and so forth, it just became real property. Why? Because the keyword here is attached. Purchasing considerations. When making an offer, a buyer may request real and personal property. Curtains, frames, chandeliers, air conditioners, refrigerators. When in doubt, write it out in the RPA. This is crucial. And I want to pause here for a second. We like things in real estate, in a real estate transaction, to be super clear. No misunderstandings. And the only way to do that is to put it in the contract. No misunderstandings. And in the contract, it might say already by default, right? It might already be in there that by default, the contract says all attached items must remain. Yet you'll be showing a property to a buyer, and you'll walk in there and you'll see a ceiling fan that your buyer really, really likes. Now, you know, because you took this beautiful course, that ceiling fan will be there when you close the deal for your buyer, right? After all, it is attached. Everybody should know that anything attached is real property and must remain, right? Everybody should know this. It's a no-brainer. You'd be surprised. I'd hate for your buyer to walk into their brand new house on the day you hand them the keys and that ceiling fan is gone. And it's gone because the other team, the seller's team, including their agent, didn't realize that the ceiling fan was supposed to stay because it was attached. And they yanked it down and they took it with them. What a bummer. Now, if you would have written it in the contract, although it's already in there via by default of the computer, if you would have written in there, ceiling fan in dining, and be specific, ceiling fan in dining room or ceiling fan in master bedroom to remain with property at close of escrow, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, there's no misunderstandings, your buyer's gonna have it there. And if it's not there, somebody has to replace it, and we can go after the seller or the seller's agent. You see that? That's my advice to you, is although it's there by default, put it in there again. Put it in your own writing if you have to, with a pen. I don't care. Put it in there and have both sides sign it. It's better to have more validation than none at all. You with me? That's the best thing to do. That's my advice to you for the day. Commercial trade fixtures. Now, we already discussed that anything attached is a fixture and it must remain with the property, making it real property. Well, there's one exception to the rule. There's one exception to the rule, and that's trade fixtures. And by trade, we mean work fixtures. Let's assume a barber. A barber decides to open up a business and he finds a great empty unit near a beautiful highway where he can make a lot of business, right? And he leases it out and he says, well, first off, I'm gonna need some barber chairs in there. So he goes in there and he installs 3 barber chairs and then he bolts them to the ground. Well, once they become bolted to the ground, by definition, they become real property because they're now attached to the floor. But trade fixtures, it's understood that I'm putting this in just for my trade, meaning just for my career, my business. And when I leave this place, meaning when the lease is over, I take it with me. So please remember this. And this will be, I definitely believe you'll see this in your exam, your final, and your real estate exam. And that is that trade fixtures do not remain with the property. Trade fixtures, which are fixtures used for a trade, such as a barber or a huge giant refrigerator for a restaurant that you brought in because you opened up a new restaurant, all that stuff, although it is attached, you're removing it and taking it with you when the lease is over. You got it? And that's an exception to the rule where a fixture is not real, although it's attached. Trade fixtures. It's a trick question. Don't let them fool you. You now know. All right, take a look there at your screen there. Although attached commercial fixtures, also known as trade fixtures, are an exception and are not real property. Example would be dental chairs, counters, heating units, all that good stuff, right? And the barber chair I just gave you the example of, all right? Good. Let's keep on moving. Trade fixtures, definition, items installed by tenants for business use. Removal rights can be removed before lease end if installed in good faith, and tenant responsibility must repair any damage caused by the fixture removal. It's a given, all right? So we discussed trade fixtures. You understand trade fixtures are not real property, and that's what I want you to remember. Trade fixtures, although attached, like all other fixtures, it goes with me when I leave, therefore it is not real property. Fixtures, a way to tell if a fixture is real property. We have what we call the acronym MARIA. Maria, Maria. The acronym MARIA will help us remember. The M stands for method of attachment. The stronger something is attached, the more likelihood that it is going to be real property. A is for adaptability. The item is adapted or customized to fit the property, such as mini blinds for a custom-made window. The chances of finding another house that has the same exact custom window, let's assume it's a window 1 foot by 10 feet long. And the reason it was installed was to bring in some natural light. The chances of finding another house that's going to utilize this size mini blinds are slim to none, right? They were made specifically for that window, so they should remain real property. Relationship of parties, items installed by tenants, personal property. By homeowners, more likely fixtures. Makes sense. Items installed by the tenants are still personal property, and they're going to take it with them when they leave. But by homeowners, it'll be more likely fixtures, which means it'll stay. It stays. Intent, purpose of installation is considered. Tenants install security camera, plans on removing it when the lease is over. Obviously, intent is for him to utilize it, only him, for his security purposes, and when he leaves, he's taking it with him. An agreement, written agreements can clarify fixture status big time. I want to emphasize a agreement. I don't know how many times I could tell you this, but when you have something written and everybody signed it, we all agree that this is going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, somebody breached the contract. And that's a whole different story, right? Then the courts get involved. But an agreement is a deal, is a deal, is a deal. Buyer or tenant, whoever signs it, agrees to the stipulations. Seller or landlord owner agrees to it. We sign agreeing to this beautiful contract we just created. What's the problem, right? So whenever you put something in the contract, it's just about written in stone. So the best thing to do is when you have any doubt if something is real or personal, like, I don't know what I should do. Should I mention it in the contract or not? I mean, I think I'm dumb. I don't care what they think. If I were you, if you have any doubt, put it in the contract. What about a television that's bolted to the wall there? Should that stay or should that go? I don't know. Well, if you don't know and you want it, put it in the contract. You know, mounted television in den to remain with the home when the transaction is over, upon completion of escrow, at close of escrow, any wording you want to use, but put it in the contract to protect your buyer. You have to be proactive, due diligence, fiduciary duties to your buyer. Be proactive. Don't just sit back and watch this game happen. Get on the field and play the game. All right, enough of that. Let's keep moving. When in doubt, write it out. Where? In the contract. All right, let's go into personal property. Take a look here at your slide. Personal property, also known as chattel. We talked about chattel. This is just a few examples of what personal property would look like. And as you look, you could see lawnmower, hanging wall art, furniture, chairs, a car, electronics. Well, how do we transfer personal property from a seller to a buyer? Well, it's transferred via bill of sale, right? Anytime somebody's selling something, a personal piece of property, we typically use a bill of sale when selling it to a buyer. In real estate, for real property that's attached, it's going to be the deed, and that's the difference. So please know that we use a deed to transfer real property, we use a bill of sale to transfer personal property, and there you have it. Listen, we're going through a lot, but it's all simple. It's all understandable. You're getting it. Don't doubt yourself. You're getting this. You're getting this. You're getting this. Real property attached, personal property not attached. You got it? We're good. Good rule to practice when it comes to real property or personal property. What if you are not certain if an item is real or personal property? Answer. When the buyer prefers the item to remain with the sale of the home, ask for the item in the written offer. Again, when in doubt, write it out in the RPA, in the residential purchase agreement. Now, why am I reinforcing this? Because I've seen too many times in my career where other agents don't. And when the sale is over, when they close escrow, what they thought was going to be there is not there. And the real estate agent for the buyer has to cough up and replace it. What am I talking about? A barbecue grill. Well, those aren't cheap. A built-in barbecue grill. You would think that would stay, right? It's surrounded by bricks and it's beautifully done, and they just placed the barbecue grill right in there. Yet the seller decided to take it. They're not cheap. The buyer's agent had to come in, with $500-$600 to replace it. How about a stove? A stove is a given. It's built in. Yet the seller decides to take it. Who's going to replace it now? Well, the buyer's looking at you, the agent, the buyer's agent saying, what happened? And the ethical thing to do would be for the buyer's agent to replace it. Now, this happened to me once. Many, many, many years ago, where I thought it was a given that the blinds to the home was going to stay. They were just going to stay. I was representing the seller. And I thought, well, the seller knows all the blinds to every window in this house must remain, right? Unless he goes and finds himself a house just like this. What are the chances of that happening? These blinds have to stay. He's got to know this. This is my seller. And we closed the transaction, and I was very excited for everybody, and everybody went on their way. The seller moved out. the buyers went to move in, and when the buyers went to move in, and they were not my buyers, they were well represented by somebody else. All the blinds to the windows, to every single window, was gone. I'm like, oops. Now I should have informed my sellers, hey, don't touch the blinds must remain. Or the buyer's agent could have very well put in there blinds to remain with the property. Either way, I said, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. So it can't happen, and the best thing to do is that when you're in doubt, put it in the contract. So what did I do? I contacted my seller immediately and said, you got to bring back those blinds, man. And luckily they were very, very cooperative sellers, very nice people, beautiful people, and they did bring them back. They just didn't know. All right, let's keep on moving. Contracts in real estate. What kind of contracts we're talking about? Well, written contracts. Real estate contracts must be in writing, except leases of 12 months or less. Personal property contracts for anything that's $500 plus or motor vehicles should be in writing. And the Uniform Commercial Code may require written instruments for certain transactions, such as bulk sales and secured transactions where personal property, like equipment or fixtures, is used as collateral for a loan. There you have it, contracts and real estate. Again, collateral. If you want equipment to be collateral, put it in writing. That's what the lender does. Lenders put their loans in writing. It's no more spit on a hand and a handshake. And they say, hey, listen, we'll lend you the money, but that house is collateral, man. Meaning if you don't pay up, we're taking back the house. Same thing here with this one. Secured transactions where personal property like equipment or fixtures are used as collateral for a loan. All right, here we go. Keep going. Doing great. Transfer instruments. You got your grant deed, you got your quitclaim deed, and you got your trust deed. What do these mean? Deed. Grant deed. Who grants a deed? Who gives a deed? Grant meaning I give it to you. Well, of course, the one holding it in this case would be the seller. The seller signs the grant deed saying, hey, listen, I grant this deed to you, buyer, on account that you're going to give me what's called consideration, money. So the grant deed is always the seller. They grant the deed. They give it away in exchange for something else. Contains implied warranties that the grantor has not previously sold the property and has disclosed any known encumbrances that, hey, you buyer, you're the only one I'm dealing with. I'm not selling it to you and some other guy over here. No, you're the only one I'm dealing with. It must be notarized and recorded with the county recorder's office. Quitclaim deed. The grantor quits any claim. I know I have a right to this property, but I don't want to have rights to this property anymore. I want to escape ownership of this property. What am I talking about? Somebody who gives up the right to a property. Somebody who's on title and does not want to be on title anymore. Remove me from this title. I'm okay with that. For example, here in California, when a married couple purchases property, it's what we call community property. They own it together 50-50. When they purchase property together as a married couple, it's community property, it's 50-50. In many cases, it's joint tenancy with the right of survivorship, all right? So, with that being said, it's 50-50. 50-50. But let's assume it's going to be 50-50 because the law says it is, but they go apply for a loan. And the lender says, unfortunately, Mr. Buyer, your credit score is too low and you're holding back the purchase. But we can't proceed with only Mrs. Buyer. And Mr. Seller looks at his wife and he says, well, honey, go ahead and buy it for us. It's okay. I understand that the law says I get 50%, but in this case, if we keep me on, we can't even buy a house, so that's okay. I'll sign a quit claim saying I quit my claim to that property. You go and buy it yourself. That's what a quit claim deed is. The husband in this case doesn't want to hold back the purchase, so the wife is going to purchase it on her own. Transfers whatever interest the grantor may have without warranties or guarantees. Commonly used in divorce settlements or to clear title defects should still be recorded for public notice. There's many reasons why people would use this. They just want off title. Off title. Divorced couple, sure. One of them says, listen, I'll buy you out. Just go away. Here's an extra $10,000. Let me have the house. Signed quit claim saying you know you had a right to it, but you don't want the right to it anymore. Many ways we use quitclaim deeds. And trust deed, used in loan transactions to give the lender a security interest in the property. It creates a three-party relationship between borrower, which is a trustor, lender, which is always the beneficiary. Anytime you see the word beneficiary, I want you to think of the lender, man. This darn lender always gets all the benefits. And the trustee. It must be recorded to establish priority. A trust deed is an agreement, man, between the buyer and the lender. And they agree that this deed is going to be held by a trust, by a trustee. And this trustee holds on to the deed and they say, you know what, guys, what am I supposed to do with this? And the instruction given to them is, well, if they pay it off, if the buyer continues making all the payments and they get to the very end of the loan and they pay it off, give the deed over to the buyer. And if they don't make the payments and they default, have a trustee sale. Sell that sucker so we can get our money back. That's the lender talking. So in this case, the trustee is a neutral third party saying, hey, just tell me what to do, guys, and I'll do it. And it's right there. The deed is hold on tight with them, and they say, you know what, one of two things. I'll release it to this guy, to the buyer, or we'll sell it to the general public at an auction. Makes sense. Makes sense. All right, so you got your grant deed signed by the seller, you got your quitclaim deed signed by anybody who wants off of the title, and then you got your trust deed, which is held by a trustee on behalf of the buyer and the lender. Of course, the lender has the benefit here, so the lender is always the beneficiary. Let's keep moving here. Transfer instruments, you got the bill of sale, which we already discussed. When you're selling personal property, we're going to utilize a bill of sale. An assignment. An assignment is transfers, rights, title, and interest in contracts, leases, or other non-title property. An example. There's a lot of talking there, huh? A lot of verbiage. Probably thinking, what the heck does all this mean? Assignment. Transfers, rights, title, and interest in contracts, leases, or other non-title property. You know what subleasing is, yeah? You have the rights to a house, and you want to transfer your rights to somebody else. Hey, you know what? You can have this. Example. A tenant might assign their lease to another person, transferring their interest in the property to the assignee. There you have it. Another example, a lender may assign a mortgage to another lender, transferring the right to collect payments and enforce the mortgage terms. There you have it. Something has been created and you want to transfer that something from you to somebody else. And there you have it. Transfer instruments, the way to transfer something from one person to another. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Emblements, crops, and property rights. Emblements, what are emblements? Well, let's take a look here. Part of land. Cultivated crops are considered part of the land until harvested. All right? Cultivated crops are considered part of the land until harvested. So while they're in the ground, real property until they're harvested. Harvest. Once harvested, crops become personal property. Remember, once you can hold it, it becomes personal property. While it's attached to the land, it's part of the land. Seller's rights. This is tricky. Not a big deal though, it's just common sense. It's almost logic. Seller retains the right to harvest the crops that were planted after ownership title. This is referred to as emblements. You got it? So if I'm selling my property and I just harvested a whole bunch of corn, right? But it's not quite ready to be picked. I can put in the contract my seller's rights that I am allowed to come back and pick my crops. Seller retains the right to harvest the crops that were planted after ownership transfer. And last but not least, we got end of rights. Seller's rights end after designated emblements are removed. Once they're removed and I get the crop, seller rolls out, buyer stays, new owner stays, and that's that. Emblements. I can come back for my crops. I can come back once they're all harvested, right? But again, when in doubt, put it in the contract. Sure, always put it in the contract. The contract may already say it. Well, so what? By default, it doesn't matter. I always like to overprotect, if there's such a thing, my buyers. And your sellers. If your sellers really want the crops, right, once they're harvested, protect them. Put it in the contract. Although by default, it may already say that in there, put it in there again in your own writing, in your own words. That way there's no misunderstanding where they said, well, I thought, no, you thought nothing. It's right there in the contract. You agree to it. How? Signature. All right, here we go. Next one, land description methods, ways to describe land when you want to get specific with the parcel of land. There's legal description, which is the most accurate and preferred method. It starts at a point of beginning. Starts here, and then we're going to go 20 feet that way, and then 30 feet that way. So we have legal description. We have assessor's parcel number. That's one that's most commonly used for us real estate agents. When you're making an offer on a property, you're going to put the address, of course. You're going to put 1234 Main Street, and then you're going to put the APN number to get real specific. And that APN number could be found on the preliminary title report that the title company provides us with. And it's like a car, it's like a vehicle, right? It's got its license plate number, we'll consider that the address, and it's got its VIN number, we'll consider that the APN number. It's security that we're buying the right property, right? We match up the APN with the address and we know, yep, this is the one that I want to buy. And then of course the street address, used when available, the least precise, but it's probably the most commonly used along with the APN. Along with the APN. The APN gets real specific, by the way. Meets and bounds method. All right, here we go. Meets refers to the distance. Bounds refers to the directions. Meets, M-E as in measurement. That's how you're going to remember that. M-E, meets stands for measurements, the distance, and bounds refers to boundaries. That's pretty simple to remember. Meets is distance because of the measuring of the distance. Bounds is the boundaries. Example, beginning at the southeast corner of lot 10, running 50 feet west, then 100 feet north, then 50 feet east, and finally 100 feet south of the point of beginning. There you have it. Meets refers to distance measured in inches, feet, yards, or rods. Bounds, natural or artificial boundaries like rivers, roads, or surveyor posts. And last but not least, we have usage, often used in rural areas or regions with uneven terrain. That's when it's used, the meets and bounds. Take a look at your photo there. Sometimes you want to buy a piece of land, out in the boondocks, and there's not many houses out there, but you want to buy a piece of nice land out in the mountains to build your own house, right? That'd be beautiful. A custom home, right? Nice. And you want to put it up there at the mountains, up in the mountains, to have some privacy or to use for the winter, who knows? Meets and bounds. Well, if you want to buy this land, it goes from that tree over there to that one over there, and that's the bounds. And the meets would be, you go 50 feet that way, and then you go 20 feet this way. And that's how we use meets and bounds. That's the usage of meets and bounds. Alrighty, let's go on to the next one. Lot and block method. Now we're talking about communities right here in town or a suburban area, right? We're talking about lots and blocks. Subdivision maps provide lot and block descriptions for urban areas. The plat map describes parcels by tract, street, and lot, and that's probably what you all are familiar with. And then we have recording, maps filed at county recorder's office for future transfers. The plat map describes parcels by tract, street, and lot. Look at that photo there. You got a block there. You got land there. You got parcels of tract there. Some of you may have bought a house in a tract neighborhood. My wife and I bought a tract home once, and they sell them tract by tract, right? The developers will build, and sell tract housing. Most of the houses look very, very similar, same style, same color, so on and so forth, and that's how it's done. Subdivision maps provide lot and block descriptions for urban areas. Rectangular survey method, baselines and meridians, townships and sections. All right, this is my first introduction to you on how to work with townships and sections. And you might think, oh my God, this is confusing as heck. Let's make it nice and simple. First of all, we have a great video on this on our YouTube channel. We have a great video that describes townships and sections, baselines and meridians, all that stuff. And it refers to this here. Take a look at your picture there on your screen. It refers to this. Now keep in mind, let's assume this here, this what you see there in front of you is a town. We call it a township. We call it a township. A township consists of 36 sections. This township consists of 36 sections. 6 sections by 6 sections. Each section is 1 mile by 1 mile. Therefore, you got 6 miles by 6 miles total for a grand total of 36 square miles. The trick here is this. You might get a question on your final and on your state exam as to what section is under section 1? What section is under section, I don't know, 26? Now what you have to do is remember one thing, that in this township, the sections start at the top right. The sections start at the top right. So you'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll work your way to the left. And then you'll come back to the right. And then you'll go back to the left. Just like a snake, it never disconnects. And that's the trick. So you'll have to visualize, well, if 1 is here, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we got 7 coming back this way. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 would be under 1. Please remember that. The sections begin at the northeast corner and they move west, just like a snake. That's crucial to know in order for you to visualize what section is below whatever other section, or what's to the west of whatever section. Or if they ask you, what is east of section 26? Well, you would think, because we have reading left to right, you would think, well, no, after 26 to the east would be 27. Not according to the system here. And the system says start at the far right and work your way this way like a snake. So you have to be careful with that. Don't take it for granted that this is just like reading left to right, because it's not. All right, there you go. There you have it. Measurements. Use section, township, and range numbers to precisely locate properties within the grid system. There you go. Don't forget to visit that video I was telling you about. We have a great video on this that explains in detail how this really works. It's got more color, it's got more fun, and it's me hosting that video. You'll have a blast with it. All right, good. Let's keep on moving. Community property in California. We talked about community property in California. The concept carried over from the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which happened, I believe, in 1849, I think it was, when it was Mexico and the United States of America back then. And the treaty was that Mexico sold lots of their land to United States of America. That's what the history books tell us. Definition: property acquired by either spouse during marriage. Don't forget, in California, it's community property. When married and property is purchased, it goes 50-50. Boom. When property is purchased together, real estate property, it's 50-50 community property. Separate property is property owned separately, obtained before or during marriage. So what kind of property during marriage? If property was obtained via, say, a will, somebody willed one of the spouses' house, well, then it's separate property. But anything purchased together during that marriage is 50-50. If one of the spouses had a condo already, they already owned it before the marriage, it remains their own property. If they're willed something to them during the marriage, it's only that spouse's property. Unless they want to add this other spouse on title, that's fine. But the law says that anything that's given to them during that marriage is technically only the one spouse who it was given to. Let's move on. Mutual water companies. Most properties will receive their water from a public water system, of course. However, some may have a shared well or water companies, which we discussed. They actually have to pump their own water with their own well. That can be inconvenient, but some of them have it down, packed. They know exactly how to do it. Particularly with these electric pumps nowadays, it makes it a lot easier. Formation created when developments use a common water source. Ownership, property owners each hold equal shares of stock in that water company and equal right to water use among shareholders. This is a great photo there that you have in front of you. The image there shows that the water is there and it's pumped to all the homes in that neighborhood, in that community. And they all have a right to share that water amongst themselves. They all have the right to share that water amongst themselves, making it nice and convenient for everybody in that community to have water in their domain, in their properties, right? But then again, don't forget, they're all sharing ownership via owning stocks in that little water company. I've sold a couple of houses like this, nothing wrong with it. What happens is the buyer sometimes we'd like to have an inspection of the well, make sure it's pumping appropriately, and they have every right to do so, right? I mean, to have water is a necessity. It's crucial. And you want to make sure that all the systems that give us the water are working perfectly. Uniform Commercial Code in Real Estate. A set of laws that standardize commercial transactions in the U.S. It covers sales, leases, and secured loans. The goal is to make business dealings more consistent across the states. We talked about this not too long ago, a few slides ago. It's when selling bulk sales, securities, and security agreements may necessitate written instruments for specific transactions, govern certain personal property transactions in real estate. The purpose with this is, of course, if we're going to use bulk sales or personal property within or inventory within this business, we're going to utilize it as collateral. Uniform Commercial Code in Real Estate is a set of laws that standardizes commercial transactions in the U.S. Covers sales, leases, and secured loans. The goal is to make business dealings more consistent across the states. Chapter 1 of Principles. You did it. Listen, that was not too much that we did today. It's okay though. We're going to get more into contracts later, and I'm going to make it nice and simple. We're going to get into more escrow stuff later, but I'm going to make it nice and simple. But today we just wanted to learn the basics of real estate, actually real estate itself, real property. What is real property? What is personal property? Understanding the instruments of real estate so that we can now throw ourselves in the real estate world when it comes to negotiations of real property, of negotiations of possibly personal property. We can start to think analytical, but today's lesson was simply understanding the instruments of real property. What is and what isn't. Attached, not attached. Permanently attached, can we remove it? What happens when it's removed? All that good stuff was planted in your brain today. It's going to be very useful for chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So we're doing great. Don't forget, take your quiz at the end of the chapter on your online portal, and let's go straight here to the brain game. See how much you learned today. All right, true or false? Real property is movable. Is real property movable? Real property is movable. False. Real property is immovable, which means you can't move it, especially if it's attached. Who governs the bulk sale of goods? Remember that? Yeah, the Uniform Commercial Code. What document is used when transferring ownership of real property? A deed. Remember that? And who signs that deed? That grant deed? Buyer or seller? Bonus points. Who signs the grant? Who's doing the granting of the deed? Yeah, you got it. The seller. And then we got here, how many sections are in a township? Remember that town, that big town? How many sections in there? Yeah, 36. How many square miles in each section? Remember that? 1 square mile. It's 1 mile by 1 mile. How about in the township itself, the whole township? 6 miles by 6 miles. Remember that? Great. And last but not least, true or false? The law regarding community property was adopted from English Parliament. Nice question. What do you think? Well, that's false. It was the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo between Mexico and the United States. And there you have it. Congratulations. We're off and running. We're off and running. We'll see you in the Principles Chapter 2